Hello and welcome back to Speed Demon Painting. In my last video I was taking a closer look at the Vauban Sky Fortress for the Alliance, and in this video I will quickly be going over how I painted this model. Now these are the different sub-assemblies I have made. I've made basically two similar hull parts, and those will be given a base coat of Vallejo Game Color Hexed Lichen, and I will be highlighting this with Warlord Purple, sprayed in a zenithal pattern from above using the airbrush. This creates some pretty natural shading down below at the base of the ship, and it will sort of have a smooth transition on the side, but I'll still be using edge highlights to put a bit more emphasis on this thing. So this is pretty much what you end up with. It almost looks like a bit of a two-tone at this stage, but believe me, once you start painting all of the details, that will quickly fade away. Now the other part you have to do, of course, is all of the detail work, but painting your model like this in sub-assemblies means that you have very easy access to all of the details on the model, and it also means that you can paint the other parts in a different color scheme as well. For instance, this decking will first be given a coat of ghost grey pretty much all across the model. I didn't even bother using my airbrush for this, because, well, with a large enough flat brush you can do this rather quickly. Now ghost grey is a rather well covering color for such a light color, but you will need a couple of coats before you reach full opacity. For example, this is the two different decks, and I've used up to 5 very thin coats of this ghost grey to get the full opacity that you can see on the right side of it, while the left one is very smudgy. Now when it comes to the central parts, I just gave them a quick base coat all over with Iron Warriors, which is a base color from Games Workshop, so that they stand apart a bit as well. And this is pretty much what you end up with after these different parts are done. It's very easy to get into the nooks and crannies with a large enough brush, and yeah, simple steps make for easy work. After the white decking is applied, I use Griff Charger Grey, which is a contrast paint by Games Workshop, but I do thin this with about 50% water to basically create a wash out of it, which gives some instant definition to all of the different panels found on the decking. I did not do this all across all of the decking because I plan to do a bit of red and blue to simulate the French flag on this decking as well, so yeah, the top ones will be given a blue base coat, while the bottom ones will be given a red base coat. For this I will be using a medium blue and some medium reds. This one is Scarlet Red, which was used for the shading, and Flat Red from Vallejo, while I'm using this Magic Blue from Vallejo Game Color again, with something that is barely readable, but this is Insignia Blue. I accidentally dropped this spot once in a puddle of red paint, as you can see. And yeah, this is what you end up with after the base coats are applied. Now the next step is to actually start doing some detail work, and for that I'll be giving a base coat of, again, that hexed lichen to the different planes found on the model, and I will be highlighting them again with Warlord Purple. On the top part I've also done the insides of it with that same ghost grey, ghost grey followed by the Griff Charger Grey as well. Should you be looking for more tips and tricks on how to paint these large centerpiece models, make sure that you subscribe to the channel for future videos such as these. Now with all of these planes painted up, this is pretty much what you end up with. I have shaded it with some Nuln Oil as well, and I've picked out some of the metallics on the airplane along with the canopy, using pretty much the same colours as the rest. Now at this stage, this is where I will be applying the decals, which are these gold fleur-de-lis that I was able to get off Etsy, because, well, this is a good stage to do them, because I want to hit the entirety of the model with a flat varnish after all of this is done, because the next step will be painting metallics, and if you have to apply any flat varnishes after you've done metallics, they sort of become a bit lackluster and lack any sheen. Now we'll also be picking out some metallic details using the same Iron Warriors paint on the center, the elevator of these hulls, and then the broadside weapons on there as well, along with the generators found at the bottom of these hulls. Now I will be hitting this with a matte varnish, because you can still fix the finish of it if you're using Nuln Oil as one of the last steps to shade everything, because Nuln Oil, the new formulation at least, has a bit of a satin finish to it and will revive some of your metallics. Now, after all of these details are picked out, we get a nice and consistent result, also with the top bridge, and yeah, now it's a case of picking out all of the different details found on that one. Now, before I do, I will be adding some black to these parts and also the side panels, and I do my black in a bit of a weird way. I start with a heavy blue-grey from Vallejo Game Color, and I then shade that one with Black Templar. That leaves a very subtle little difference between the different black parts on it. You can just use straight up black paint if you want. I just usually do this in a two-step process, because using that contrast paint I can get some very sharp outlining, because I find contrast paints rather easy to push right next to the side of the model to get some nice black lining on there as well. I do something incredibly similar with the hull. I pick it out with that heavy blue-grey from Vallejo, and then afterwards I can hit it with some of that Black Templar to leave a bit of, well, pre-highlighting. I will still be highlighting this using the blue-grey in a final step to get some clear definition on it, because before you apply those highlights, this is pretty much what you get. There's some subtle sort of transition between the black parts and the grey parts, but you can emphasize that rather easily by grabbing a good fine-tipped brush and going over it. But before we start doing any highlighting, the whole model is given a coat of ivory black oil wash. Now, the reason why I prefer oil washes is because you can manipulate them for a very long time afterwards by using some mineral spirits. That is exactly the solvent that you need to thin this down, and you can actually clean it up afterwards as well. Now, don't be afraid that the final look, or the look now, is quite dull and matted, because like I said, you can revive some of the purple by going over that with a clean brush that just is dipped in some mineral spirits and clean it up. After that is done, I start highlighting everything using Emperor's Children as the first coat, and in very select places I will be using some of this pink as well for some spot highlights. Another bit of detailing I end up doing is the glassworks. I hit it first with some Vallejo Lemon Yellow, which is a very bright yellow, and then go over it with some Fluo Orange, and then add some burnt red at the very top of everything to sort of give it a pseudo transition, if you will, from a dark top to a light bottom. At this stage of the painting process, it's largely detailing, and one of the detailing that still needs to be done is those golden parts, both with the filigree at the side of the hull and things like the top of the dome. Now, the gold I use, the base for it, is Retributor Armor by Games Workshop. I still think that's some of the best gold you can find, and I then shade it using this, which is a mix of Reichland Fleshshade and Lamian Medium, that I pre-mixed in a pot. I then highlight that with Vallejo Old Gold to sort of bring back some shimmer to the metallics, because they get dulled down a bit. And with all of the gold parts done and the model completely assembled, this is pretty much what we end up with. It is a very large model, very chunky. It absolutely will dominate your battlefield when you put it down, because as you can see, these are some of my larger islands, and yeah, this is almost the same size of it. In terms of stability, this model is mounted on a central flying stem that is actually sort of found in between two of the parts. It's pretty hard to make out with the video, but I hope you can show it here. Two parts that go to the side of it, and that also made balancing this model on the flight stem rather easily. It's definitely not too heavy because of the large hollowed out parts, and with a couple of 5x1mm magnets, I'm able to transport this rather easily using magnets. And there we have it, the paint guide for this model. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next video, bye!